Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football late Friday night. Florida State commitment sweatshirt coming back on. Three-star tight end Corbin Fordham flipping his commitment from Ohio State to Florida State. Now, look, this is where I want to start with Corbin Fordham, and we got a lot to talk about over the next 10 minutes. When you look at Corbin Fordham, you kind of want to just disregard what the recruiting rankings are telling us. And more importantly, pay attention to the programs that pushed really dang hard for this kid's commitment. Obviously, Ohio State landed his commitment way back last year in the fall. Alabama was pushing really hard at times for this kid as well. Although 24/7 Sports and the recruiting rankings don't love this kid as much, a lot of high caliber Power Four programs really did like Corbin Fordham. Now, the second conversation here is this is not the flashiest name that you see in 2026, but he really does fit what Gus Malzahn wants to do on offense. And we've been talking about that a ton for Florida State, not only recruiting the high school ranks, but also in the portal as well. Hey, let's go get good football players, but make sure those good football players fit what we want to do on both sides of the football. I look at Corbin Fordham and say, hey, you can flex him out wide into the slot. You can have him be an inline blocker. You can play him at that H-back spot as well. I'll say this with Corbin Fordham. He's only 6'4", 215 pounds right now. And you can tell he's a leaner tight end as we sit right now in his senior year of high school. This kid takes a lot of pride in what he does as a run blocker and what he does in the perimeter blocking. And look, he ain't going to play for Gus Malzahn as a tight end if you're not willing to get your hands dirty in the blocking department. I think Corbin Fordham at least has the mentality that tells us he's going to get it done on the perimeter as a blocker too. Now, I want to get into a little bit more of Corbin Fordham, but I also want to talk about some of the other names that will be on campus for Florida State because this is a monster recruiting weekend for Florida State. Before we get into it, as always, to the Florida State fans, appreciate you guys. I'll say this, been really fun talking this football team during the season in 2025. Was really fun talking this team in the summer as we were breaking down all the commitments. This new staff that Mike Norvell went out and hired, like they're flexing some legitimate recruiting chops. This was a team that went 2-10 last year, and they did a really good job on the trail in the summer. Hey, what's it going to look like as we look to close 2026 out and Florida State's winning football games in the fall? That's a really exciting storyline for a lot of Florida State fans that nitty gritty followed this stuff all year round. Appreciate you guys. Without further ado, let's get into Corbin Fordham. And again, I think it personally starts with the mentality he shows on film as a run blocker. Whether you're lining him up in line, whether you're putting him out on the perimeter when he is asked to run block or block on the outside, very, very willing, which I think's number one. When Gus Malzahn's looking for guys to add to this room, hey, we got to get it done in the blocking department. As a pass catcher, really fluid kid that has a lot of options in the route tree. He can win vertically down the field. He can win with those contested situations, does a decent job, sitting down his weight and creating some separation, can work the middle of the field, has a really nice catch radius. There's a lot you can do with Corbin Fordham, and you kind of look at him and project him out. I mean, like if you get Randy Pittman value, taking that all day of the week. Look, is Corbin Fordham ever going to be a top 50 NFL draft pick? I don't know, but I think he can do a lot of the things Florida State needs from that tight end H-back position. That's what excites me the most. Florida State being really dang disciplined when it comes to, hey, we got to get football players that fit what we want to do. And I think Corbin Fordham really does represent that. You look at the class in 2025 or the 2026 cycle, excuse me, and say it's a really big class. You like it a lot too. And here's the thing, it doesn't even sound like Florida State is even close to being done. And I think the first conversation I want to have is on the offensive line. I like the three names that Florida State has committed. We broke down those names back in the summer, but I'll say this, I don't think any of them will be starting tackles in the ACC. I think they're all interior offensive line kind of guys. Well, you got two monster tackle prospects on campus. Number one, currently in Ohio State commit Aaron Thomas. legacy guy. Pops went to Florida State, played for Florida State. Will he need a year? Yeah, he's a raw football player. 6'7", 300 pounds with the monster wingspan. Like, what we're betting on this kid every single day of the week. If you are Florida State, you're looking at a kid like Aaron Thomas and say, we got to stack as many Aaron Thomas caliber guys, or as many guys that look like Aaron Thomas, as we can in 2026, because we always say this. Look, Florida State did a nice job adding 2 tackles in the portal. Gunnar Hansen on the left side, Micah Pettis on the right side. But I'll say this: you don't want to rely on the transfer portal every single year to grab 2 starting tackles, because more often than not, you're probably not going to work out all that well. So as many of these names as you can stack at the high school ranks and get into this program, the better. And I think currently Florida State doesn't have any tackle dudes in the 2026 cycle. Here's another name, and I love this kid, Johnny Jones. He was committed to UCLA, obviously decommitted with Deshaun Foster getting fired. 6'6", 305, really good athlete, 7'1" wingspan. This is exactly what you want an offensive tackle prospect to look like. I mean, you look at Aaron Thomas and you look at Johnny Jones and say, hey, from an athletic profile standpoint, from a size, athleticism, wingspan standpoint, it don't get much better. We want to bet on both of these two cats over the next couple of years. If you're Florida State, you want to make sure you land one of them, right? I think you want to add a guy that can be, or you feel comfortable being a tackle in this conference over the next couple of years. Now, another position that I'm certainly monitoring here is Amari Thomas at the running back spot. And hey, if I'm Florida State, with what Florida State's doing running the football to start 2025, I'm trying to capitalize on all this momentum. If you're a running back and you're looking at a program to play your football for the next couple of years, you're out of your damn mind if you're not looking at Florida State. And I look at Amari Thomas and say, really good fit for what Mike Norvell wants to do. And about Amari Thomas, I mean, this is a guy that coming off his junior year averaged 12.3 yards per carry, ran the football for over 1,800 yards. During his sophomore and junior year combined, had over 3,000 yards rushing. Really, here's the thing with Amari Thomas, human joystick. Just makes people miss in space pretty damn routinely. This is the other thing. Like 5'10", 187. How physically does he run? He's got some really nice contact balance. And I'm not going to go out and comp him to a guy like Alvin Kamara, but that's kind of what he reminds you of. When you turn on the film, it's not this big, imposing running back, but it's a running back that just seemingly stays on his feet and just doesn't fall to the ground. Amari Thomas really good at absorbing contact, bouncing off tackles. I like this kid a lot. And obviously was committed to Florida State, decommitted, committed to South Carolina. Florida State likes this kid because they're not giving up on him. Here's the last name I'll throw out there, Cameron Wilson. Again, Florida State does not have a single edge rusher committed in 2026. And I'll say this, it's probably the biggest problem that we see with Florida State right now in 2025. Like, who's that super dangerous pass rusher coming off the edge? I don't know if Florida State has one. We talk about Florida State's biggest flaw as a football team. Their inability to get pressure with the front four is probably their biggest problem. Well, to me, starts with getting these kids at the high school ranks, very similar to the conversation we had with the offensive tackle position, finding those first round draft pick caliber edge rushers. They don't exist in the transfer portal. If you want exposure to those kind of football players, you have to get them at the high school ranks. Yeah, I get it. You got lucky with Jared Verse. That's not going to happen all the time. You got to take flyers on these kids. And I look at a guy like Cameron Wilson and say, look, it'll take a year, maybe even 2 years. The upside on this kid is absolutely ridiculous. Kind of reminds you a little bit of Pat Payton. And I'll say this about Pat Payton. Pat Payton, from a physical capability standpoint, there's nothing holding this kid back besides what's going on between the years. Kind of reminds you of Marquise Lightfoot, who you're going to see for the Miami Hurricanes tomorrow night. Take a flyer on this kid too, because the upside's massive. 6'5", 210, a ton of length, very twitchy coming off the edge. At these positions that are hard to address in the portal, you have to make sure you're stacking bodies at the high school ranks. You can go grab a wide receiver in the portal, right? And Deuce Robinson was a hit. There are 20 other guys that are hitting for other programs, right? But these kind of players, the ones who are protecting the quarterbacks and the ones who are getting after the quarterbacks, those are the ones that are harder to get in the portal. So you want to make sure you're betting on high upside guys, the high school ranks. We'll close it out there. Hey, big one tomorrow night. We'll break it down after the game. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. And look, I wouldn't be surprised if we're breaking down some more commitments over the next couple of days. We got a lot of talent that's going to be on campus for Florida State. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.